The 31st of December, 1775, a blizzard tears across the walls of Quebec City. Inside a leather glove, a hand grips a sword that will be fired from for exactly 90 seconds before its owner is dead. That hand belongs to General Richard Montgomery, and in the next minute and a half, the American Revolution loses the one general almost everyone agreed was destined to win it. To understand why this moment mattered so much, you need to understand who Montgomery actually was. He wasn't some untested colonial merchant playing soldier. He was a former British Army officer, a man who had fought under the Crown for 12 years before resigning his commission and marrying into New York, throwing his lot in with the colonies he once served against. When the Second Continental Congress needed someone to lead an invasion into British-held Canada, they didn't gamble on an amateur. They picked Montgomery because he had done this exact job before on the other side. By November of 1775, Montgomery had already captured Montreal, one of the few clean American victories in the entire war so far. Congress was thrilled. Soldiers trusted him. And Montgomery made a promise, not in a formal speech, but in a letter to his wife Janet, telling her he expected to be home by spring, the war in Canada finished, the 14th colony secured. That promise is the thread this entire story hangs on. Everything Montgomery does next, he does believing he will keep it. South of Quebec, a second American force under Colonel Benedict Arnold, yes, that Benedict Arnold, had marched over 350 miles through Maine's frozen wilderness to join him. Arnold's men arrived starving, frostbitten, reduced from 1,100 to barely 600 able bodies. When the two forces linked outside Quebec's walls in early December, they had a combined strength of roughly 1,200 soldiers. Inside the city, British General Guy Carleton commanded a garrison of about 1,800 defenders, protected by stone walls built for exactly this kind of siege. Time was the enemy neither general could control. Most of Montgomery's men were militia, whose enlistments expired on the 1st of January 1776. If he didn't attack before the new year, his army would simply walk home. Contracts fulfilled, no punishment, no shame, just gone. Montgomery had days, not weeks, to force a decision. A long siege was off the table. He needed a single decisive stroke, and he needed it now. So he built a plan around darkness and weather. 2 diversionary attacks would hit the city's outer defenses, while Montgomery and Arnold led separate columns in a pincer assault against the lower town, converging along the icy waterfront under cover of a snowstorm. If it worked, Quebec would fall in a single night. If it failed, there was no second attempt. The blizzard that finally arrived on December 30th wasn't bad luck. Montgomery had been waiting for it. At 4 a.m. on December 31st, in howling wind and blinding snow, Montgomery's column began moving along the narrow, ice-covered path beneath Cape Diamond. His men advanced single file, muskets useless in the storm, visibility down to almost nothing. Ahead of them stood a small barricade, a simple wooden palisade manned by a tiny detachment of Canadian militia and British sailors, maybe 50 men total, nowhere near the size of the garrison waiting elsewhere in the city. Montgomery drew his sword. He moved to the front of his own column, personally leading the charge toward the barricade, shouting for his men to follow him through the gap. This is the moment every account of the battle returns to. The general in front, not behind. The promise to Janet, still unbroken. The 14th colony, still within reach. Behind that barricade sat a cannon loaded with grapeshot, dozens of iron balls packed into a single devastating volley. The defenders, likely more frightened than confident in that storm, fired once. Montgomery was struck almost instantly, along with his aide and the officers closest to him. He died within seconds, in the snow, less than 100 feet from the wall he was trying to breach. 90 seconds. That's roughly how long the entire engagement at that barricade lasted from the first shots to Montgomery's death. One volley, fired blind into a snowstorm by 50 frightened defenders, ended the career of the most experienced general in the Continental Army. Subscribe If you're into stories where a single moment rewrites everything, hit subscribe now. With Montgomery dead, his column's second in command made the only decision that made sense in the chaos: retreat. The men who had followed their general into that gap pulled back into the storm, leaving his body behind enemy lines. Arnold's column, attacking from the opposite direction, had no idea Montgomery was already dead. Arnold pushed his men forward into the lower town, taking a musket ball through the leg early in the fight, carried off the field, still shouting orders. Command fell to Daniel Morgan, who kept fighting for hours, pushing deep into the city's narrow streets before finally being surrounded and forced to surrender with the survivors of his unit. By morning, the numbers told the whole story. Roughly 500 Americans killed, wounded, or captured. British losses were around 30. The invasion that was supposed to add Canada to the Revolution had been broken in a single night, in a single storm, by a single volley. Carleton, to his credit, treated Montgomery's body with unusual respect for an enemy commander. He ordered a proper burial in Quebec, reportedly remarking that Montgomery deserved better than an unmarked grave in the snow. It was, in its own strange way, the closest thing to a truce the two sides managed that entire winter. Historians studying this battle often compare it to Pickett's charge nearly a century later. Another moment where a commander led his own men into a fixed defensive position, trusting momentum and darkness where artillery and geography should have made him pause. In both cases, the leading general believed the moment demanded personal risk. In both cases, that belief was fatal. Congress, upon hearing the news, did something unusual for a revolution still fighting for legitimacy. They authorized a monument to Montgomery in Street, Paul's Chapel in New York City, the first monument the United States ever commissioned to honor a fallen general. Even King George's own parliament paused to acknowledge his death, with members privately admitting a former British officer of his caliber was a genuine loss to the war, regardless of which side he died on. Quebec still stands today almost exactly where it did in 1775. Walk along the base of Cape Diamond in winter, and the wind off the St. Lawrence River still cuts the same way it did that night. There's a small plaque near the site now, easy to miss if you're not looking for it, marking roughly where Montgomery fell. Janet Montgomery never remarried. She spent the next 50 years of her life a widow, waiting for a homecoming that ended in the snow outside a city she never saw. The promise Montgomery made her in that November letter, the spring return, the finished war, was broken in 90 seconds by 50 men he never had the chance to see. The invasion of Canada was over. The revolution would have to win its independence somewhere else. Next time, we follow what happened when Congress tried one more time to bring Canada into the fold, and why it failed even faster than this one did. Subscribe so you don't miss it.